Wood, Director of Marketing at mStoner, and I am very excited to welcome you to today's webinar, Fordham for Me, Social Campaign Basics. So I want to do a quick audio and video check just to make sure that you can both hear me and see me today. If a couple of people could use the raise your hand feature, if the audio is coming through loud and clear, I would really appreciate that. I'm going to turn over here to see if folks are, oh, Barbara, thank you, and Brian, and Edward, and Lane, and Sherry. Oh my God, all right. Sounds like we're working just fine. I've gotten so many hands raised. I so appreciate it. Thank you. So let's run through a couple housekeeping items, and then I'll introduce you to the two people who are on either side of me, and we'll get this webinar started. So during the webinar, you can use the chat feature to ask us questions. We've saved time at the end for Q&A, and we will have the option to let you also ask questions over the phone or over the computer microphone. So if you have a question you want to verbally ask, you can use that raise your hand feature again at the end, and we will just unmute you, and you can ask your question. You can also tweet questions to me. I'll be on Twitter in the fact channel while you're listening to Patrick and Donna, and the hashtag today is mStonerNow. We're also going to record this webinar, and it'll be available on the mStoner blog and on our YouTube channel in a few weeks. But because you registered and you're attending this session, we're going to give you early access to the recording. So just watch your email. By the end of this week, you'll have an email that has both the slide deck from today and the webinar archive. Technology, like everything else in life, is not 100%, and while, of course, we never anticipate having any issues, if for some reason GoToWebinar decides to hiccup, all you will need to do is wait 60 seconds and log back into the webinar. So fingers crossed, technology goes our way. If something happens, just wait 1 minute, log back in. And if you're listening in over your telephone today, you will actually still be connected and still be able to hear us during that reboot time. I'd also like to take a quick moment to plug our brand webinar series, which is taking place on June 18th and 19th. This two-part webinar will define an approach to brand strategy that works, an approach designed to define and gain buy-in to an institutional brand that actually speaks to the people you need to reach to achieve your institutional goals. There are a lot more details about the series and Deb Maui, who's our senior strategist and presenter. And I will actually share out a link in the GoToWebinar chat room and also on Twitter so you can learn more and register as soon as the session gets started. All right, so I am thrilled to introduce today's presenters, Patrick Powers, Project Manager at mStoner, and Donna Lehman, Director of Online Communications at Fordham University. During today's session, you can tweet Patrick at Patrick J. Powers and Donna at Donna JL. You can also tweet me at Mallory Wood. So don't forget to use the hashtag mStonerNow. And Patrick, let's get going. I'm going to turn off my webcam, shut up, and it's all yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Mallory. And thank you, Donna, for joining me today. I'm so excited to be talking with you. Just a little bit of background. I had the pleasure of working with Donna in her role as Director of Online Communications on this particular social media campaign that we'll be walking you through. But we're going to start at a bigger picture. But before we do, we did want to remind everyone that we have a hashtag, mStonerNow. So if you are tweeting along, I have got more screens going than I know what to do with. But thankfully, Mallory's on the line, and she's following along on Twitter as well. Feel free to tweet us questions, tweet insights, share your thoughts and opinions on Twitter using mStonerNow as the hashtag. So, right, well, let's dive into what it is we're going to be talking about today. Although, yes, we will be diving specifically into one particular campaign with Donna and her team at Fordham. A good plan really is going to include all of these steps. There is planning involved, there is setup, there is communications to both internal and external audiences. There's actually executing the campaign, who is the one hitting the tweet button, the post button, the share button. And then there's measurement to determine if whether or not what we are doing is a success. You know, are we moving the needle in any direction? We're also going to share some lessons learned from this particular campaign. It is technically still ongoing, but we do have some initial insights that we'd like to share about, you know, what we've learned. So,
Hey, Patrick,
if this,
yeah, I can't stay away for more than 2 minutes. We're hearing just a little bit of an echo. So what I think will solve this problem, Donna, is if you actually mute your mic while Patrick's talking, and then Patrick, when Donna fires up and it's her turn, if you can mute your mic during that time, and I'll be on mute until the end, and that should fix it. So sorry to bug you, but keep going.
No, that sounds great. I will do the mute button dance. That's not a problem. So, well, fantastic. Well, before we get started, these were some initial questions that we wanted to ask ourselves, or found out that we did ask ourselves as we embarked on this road of, let's start a social media campaign. We all know that social media has an impact and is popular among our target audiences. But where do we even start? What questions do we have? And so I will ask Donna if she would unmute herself and talk a little bit about some of these questions that we had and that we asked each other, as we started down the road of this campaign.
Sure. Okay. So I'm on. When we first started this, talking about a social media campaign, and we're going to talk about the goals, specifically in the next few slides. But really, we were looking to reach a very specific audience. And then we had some constraints. And some of those constraints are our website and kind of where we are in a redesign process. And also, of course, the resources that we had available to us in order to launch a campaign from really just a staff perspective of what could we do with social media, how could we reach the audience we wanted to reach, and was social media the best way to do that with limited resources. And then we also started to talk, and you see on the slide this question of how do you plan for spontaneity. I mean, the beauty of social media is in its spontaneity. I think you may have seen, it was out on Twitter this week about a Business Insider article about a particular marketing agency that worked for 2 months on a tweet about cheese. And, it's funny because that's just terrible that, that this is what has become of this beautiful thing, social media. But things have to be planned and things have to be accounted for. And so really, those are the questions we had. Was we wanted to do something to reach a particular audience. We wanted to use social media. We wanted it to seem spontaneous, but yet we wanted to have good planning and thinking behind it.
Right. I think the beauty here is just the understanding that before we take one step toward developing a campaign or working with people to developing the tactics or what platforms we're going to use, we're having these conversations, and we are talking about this new media, and I don't even know if we can use the term new so much anymore, but in thoughtful ways, and we are asking ourselves these questions before we go down the road of a full-on campaign. And so let's start. And so this was our approach. Really, we talked about how every good social media campaign is going to go through these steps. What we're going to do is go through these one by one and talk about how we approached the planning, the setup, the communication, the execution, and the measurement to effectively craft a campaign that made sense and could demonstrate some success. Right? So let's start here. This is the planning stage. So we were asking ourselves these tough questions. We're talking about ideas. Is social media the right fit? If so, what platforms are we using? How will we reach our audience? How do we plan for spontaneity? We're asking all of these questions and more. We're asking about resources. What content's been successful in the past? What do we think will work? What do we know that already does work? And essentially, what are we trying to accomplish here? At the end of the day, we want this campaign to do something. It's not enough just to say, we're going to launch this social media campaign, it's going to be awesome. Okay, well, why is it going to be awesome? What are you hoping to accomplish doing this awesome thing? And so when we start developing strategies and objectives, these are all the questions that we ask ourselves. And before we get to the specifics of Fordham, I am going to back up just a second, just have Donna tell us a little bit about Fordham University and kind of, as we're brainstorming, all the things that we took into consideration about who Fordham is and what they wish to accomplish.
Sure. So we're located in New York City. The university is about 15,000 students total, but we're on 2 campuses. We have a large, you know, campus in the Bronx, which is more of a traditional kind of old buildings and quad kind of place. But we also have a campus in Manhattan, it's called our Lincoln Center campus. It's right next to Lincoln Center. We have 4 undergraduate colleges, which include an undergraduate arts and sciences college at each campus, and then a business school and continuing and professional studies. And then we have 5 graduate schools. So we're a really big place. Of course, the most important thing for you to know about us right now is that we're undergoing an entire site redesign with mStoner. This website has not had real attention since about 2008. We're in a state where a lot of people, I think a lot of universities are right now, having to completely rethink the whole site because of responsive, because of mobile first and writing for the web. And so that really informed this campaign, because in the end, we can't rely right now on the website as the destination for any of the social media that we might have wanted to do. You kind of want to drive traffic to your website, but in this case we didn't, because we're not ready for that yet. We're laying a foundation now. So that was I think one of our biggest obstacles is what can we do that's not really going to drive a whole lot of traffic to the website? And then we wanted to do this we're doing this in concert with the admissions office. And of course, at this particular moment when we were undertaking this campaign, the admissions office, it was their crunch time. I mean, it was absolutely the worst possible time for them because they were evaluating applications. And so we had some obstacles there.
Right. I think the question is, when is a good time for admissions offices, right? They're in this never-ending cycle. But this was who we really were specifically looking to help. And so I'll talk a little bit about the kind of the challenges of the admissions office, and what was it that they were looking for, Donna, and what was it that we were hoping to do with this campaign to meet?
Yeah, they're really looking forward to this new website, which will be launching in late fall. But unfortunately, that new website couldn't do anything to help us influence yield this year. And so that was what we wanted to do. That was our goal, is how do we influence the yield of this incoming class? We were hitting at a time as the admitted student population was being invited to Fordham. And what could we do to influence their decision to choose Fordham? So.
Oh, great. And so let's start down the road of this campaign. So if we have a goal, in this particular case, we've clearly identified this goal as a very specific thing. We're influencing yield for admitted undergraduate students planning to enroll in 2014. This is what we want to do, which is the same thing that we will come back to at the end of the campaign to say, well, did we do what we set out to do? And so as we start to go down that road of figuring out what it is we're going to be doing during this campaign, one of the first questions we ask ourselves is, who is our audience? And so I do want to take a step back and think about audiences in a broader perspective. Think about, who are these people that we're trying to reach? What are they like? Where do they live? What motivates them? How old are they? What are their personality traits? What are their technical levels of know-how? And what social media platforms do they use? How do they use them? We're asking very specific questions about a very specific audience. A lot of times when we talk to people and they say, well, we want to start this social media campaign. Okay, well, who do you want to reach? Well, everyone who's using social media. And it's just not a realistic audience to go after the internet as your audience. We can't reach everyone with these platforms. And so by narrowing our focus and targeting these specific audiences, we can make the language and the content and the approach more clear, more directed, and easier to measure at the end of the day. And so specifically for our audience, for this particular campaign, I'll let Donna address who it was we were speaking to. Who was the person that we were trying to attract and bring to the table?
We of course know, we've said admitted students, and we were really looking at our undergraduate population, so they are 17 to 19-year-olds. We know based on some of the other activity that we do here at Fordham that they're active on social media. So obviously these were going to be the folks we wanted to reach. Those that were, you see them on Facebook and you see them on Twitter and Instagram, so you know they're there, and they have friended Fordham or followed Fordham. And we also, of course, have been communicating with this population via email, over the course of the year. So we had, it was like a nice little package, this audience, and it was very focused.
Patrick, I know you're saying really smart things, but we can't hear you
Sorry.
from you.
I missed my first step in the mute dance.
It's a fun dance, and you're doing a great job. All right.
Thank you. I apologize for that. But piggybacking on what Donna was saying, this was the type of student, exactly the type of students we were looking to get involved in this campaign. This was a month before we had started talking about a campaign or started talking about how we might use social media. This particular student shared on Instagram a screenshot of an email announcing his early admission to Fordham University. And he shared it with his friends, and he got more than 100 people to like it, comments on it, and he's sharing it with our target audience, those 17 and 19-year-olds who have been admitted and who are about to enroll in the fall. This was happening anyway, and it probably happens at every college or university across the campus. And so then our question became, well, how do we take advantage of this? How do we focus this? And how do we encourage and elevate these students, potential students, and connect with them at a point in time where they are making a very large life decision? How do we encourage that bond, foster that community before they even sit down for one class? And so this was the strategy. How were we going to do this? And our plan was to leverage popular platforms to generate excitement about choosing Fordham, to reinforce the idea that Fordham is a great place to live and a great place to receive an education, to get people excited about coming there, to encourage them to meet new people. And so we were going to use the popular platforms among this target audience to do so. So we have our strategy and we have our goals, but we also wanted to make sure that we set forth measurable objectives. So at the end, we can come back and say, did we do what we set out to do? And we had really 3 simple objectives, not really knowing what we were diving into or how we were going to focus this particular campaign. We narrowed it to these 3 things, which was 1, reach 90% of all admitted students, whether it's through our targeted email, through a social media post on Instagram or Tumblr. We wanted to reach 90% of them before we could even attempt to influence them. We wanted to prompt 100 of these admitted students to generate content, to actively participate in this campaign, to share what was most important in this decision. And we wanted to attract 150 new followers on Tumblr and Instagram. We thought these were all realistic goals and achievable. Some might have stretched us further than Fordham wanted, but we wanted to push ourselves to really accomplish something here. And so once we have our goals in place, our measurable objectives, we know what the strategy is, it's now that we turn to the tactics. So often people start with this slide, but this, I'm looking at my notes right now, it's slide 16. This is not where we started. It wasn't that we wanted a Facebook campaign and Fordham wanted a Twitter campaign. It was we know that social media is important. We wanted to use the social media to reach this particular audience. How do we go about doing that? And so we really focused on these 2 particular platforms, Instagram and Tumblr. there's a 2013 Global Web Index study of 16, 17, 18, and 19-year-olds. I believe they interviewed 170,000 people online. Found that the fastest growing platform of use among this target audience was Instagram, with a 23% increase in use among that audience in 2013. Tumblr had a 6% increase in active usage among that audience. By comparison, Facebook, which we still know they all use, was down 3%. To teens, they use Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr in different ways and connect with people differently on those platforms. To them, Facebook is everyone they ever knew, whereas Instagram and Tumblr have become these communities and handful of people that they really care about. And so that's where we specifically wanted to focus this particular campaign. And so the setup. The setup includes a lot of platform setup. There were some design elements. Tumblr allows you to customize themes. And so in order to better brand it with Fordham University, we changed colors and font styles to align with where Fordham is taking their brand in a design direction. We had to set up the accounts on Tumblr. We had to do some research. And so in conducting that research, we looked around at what was Fordham already doing, where were they? And I'll let Donna speak to that, a little bit about where they were when we started from a social media perspective.
Yeah, this was something that was really new to us. Really, this idea of using social media for pure marketing reasons, for this sort of thing, because mostly what we've done on social media to this point has been news focused. Our news team does an amazing job of putting out, 3 or 4 posts a day via Facebook and Twitter, but it's news, and it's newsy. And so we get a lot of likes and we get a lot of interaction, but it's not necessarily for prospective students. It's not necessarily to influence people to choose Fordham. And so this was something this is our dipping our toes into something that we'll be moving forward with, especially when we have the new website. We have some activity on Instagram with our admissions office was posting pictures and having their student ambassadors post pictures on Instagram. Mostly they were beautiful. We have a beautiful campus, and so it was our campuses and pictures of that. We got really good engagement there, though, so we knew people would be very interested in using Instagram. And then we weren't on Tumblr at all until this point.
And actually, I'll follow up. There's a question from Diana that came across on Twitter from Diana Williams. It said, what platforms did we reject and why? Like Snapchat, did you consider it? And I can jump in on that.
I don't, we didn't. Yeah, I always say,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Patrick.
To be honest, sure. We looked at all the platforms that Fordham was using, and knowing that there were certain constraints in terms of resources. They didn't have a team of people, that could be on all these platforms at all places at all times. And so understanding the environment as it existed and looking at the platforms and really wanting to tailor this approach to this audience, we stuck to those 2 platforms. So I hope that answered your question, Diana.
I would also add that, and I would add that as far as Facebook and Twitter, while we had these huge audiences there, because we hadn't done this thing in the past, it would have been such a 180-degree turn as far as the tone of our content. Nobody was ready for that yet. And so we sort of had to do something completely new in a space where we weren't really established yet.
Right. And so that's a great segue into this. This is the space. This is the Fordham University Tumblr that was created for this particular campaign with goals of being very visual. We touched on Instagram and Tumblr being our primary platforms for what we were trying to accomplish here, being very visual in nature. And so this is a responsive design Tumblr theme, excuse me, that allows us to demonstrate the photography that's being shared throughout this campaign. But before we were even ready to launch it, a lot needs to happen. and specifically, a lot needs to happen on campus. And so I'll let Donna talk a little bit about what it takes to secure buy-in for a campaign like this.
You know, because we haven't done anything like this, there was this, we really did have to talk to people about not only what we were trying to accomplish and how we were going to accomplish it, but also manage expectations about what was going to happen during the campaign and how we might consider it a success. We needed some participation, obviously, from the admissions office, and again, knowing that they were understaffed and incredibly busy, we needed their help. What we did was really to launch the thinking around this campaign is we set up a meeting where there were representatives, myself and some other people from marketing, and then we had, I think, Patrick and Susan Evans from mStoner were on the phone, and then we got all of the leadership around the table from the Vice President of Enrollment Management, Associate VP, the Director of Admissions, the Director of Financial Aid, and a bunch of people from their office around the table to talk about this particular idea and what they thought of it, if they solicit any kind of ideas they had about it, and actually we got some really good feedback from them. To say that they were hesitant, I wouldn't, I think they were really ready to go all in, but they of course had concerns about the execution, and so we really just talked it out and came up with some great ideas.
Right. And so let's talk about the execution. We've met, we have this plan in place, we know the platforms that we're going to use. Well, how do you go about setting up something like this and recruiting people to be the first person to join in?
Yeah. It relied on us. One was inserting additional emails into an already very busy email communications plan. Because of when we were doing this, this was a time we were communicating with these admitted students actively. So one, we had to write some good emails and tell the admitted student about this campaign to get them to participate. I actually went onto the campuses with, you'll see this in some of the other photos we'll be showing you, is with a sign. It said, with the hashtag, it said Fordham for me, with hashtag, and I asked people, I just went around to offices there. Yeah, there's one. So I went around to offices and asked random students, you explained a little bit about what we were doing, and said, would you please hold up this sign and let me take your picture? And then I would get their Instagram account, post this, and tag them in hopes to just kind of start. Now, they were all current students, and there were some popular faculty members, people I knew, that some of the other people on the Fordham campus, because it was still about buy-in too at this point, people that other people would recognize. And we had seed images, is what we called them. These were our seed images. Then as we launched the campaign, the email went out, and we started planting these seed images, a couple a day. So you can see that. And then the other big strategy we did is that we had these admitted student days. And so we thought, here's a perfect opportunity to create content for Fordham for me. Again, this is one of these things where you're planning for spontaneity again. But we had a backdrop, and we got the mascot, and over to what you don't see is over to the side, there's a great big poster on an easel that says, share your excitement with the Fordham for me hashtag. And so people were prompted to take their picture, and then they themselves would post to Instagram, of course, and use the hashtag. So this that was really highly successful. We had a lot of people on. We had one on each campus, and we had a lot of pictures generated during those days that were really fun and heartfelt too, because they were excited to be there.
Right, and I think what should be underscored here is that a good social media campaign doesn't exist in social media alone. Donna and her team did a lot of on-the-ground work to get these opportunities together. It takes time to get the backdrop, to coordinate the mascot, to create the easel, and then to stand there and staff it. that in turn will be shared to a wider and broader audience, the product and of all of her efforts there. And so we've got this campaign running, and the images are starting to roll in. And Fordham University has done a great job of seeding images, of encouraging participation, sent out a series of emails to reach out to those newly admitted students. How do we measure that? What are we tracking? What are we listening to? And what are we reporting on? So, Donna, let's dig into to date. What are some of the things that we've seen and some of the things that we know that this campaign is headed in the right direction?
Yeah. So what really was the work of this, beyond setting up, and the admissions team was great in helping us set up for the admitted student days and sending out the emails and making sure all that happened. And really beyond that, the work of the campaign was checking in every day to see are there new photos, moving those photos onto the Tumblr blog. We had some great, open rate, I think with admitted students it's always good because they're invested in you, but we were really happy with the click-through rate as well. The 3 emails were actually over 2 audiences. The first email was the admitted student population, and the second 2 emails were the general admitted. It was early action, and then the regular admitted students. And we had great open rates and good response, and you can always tell, of course, as soon as the email went out, there would be a gazillion Tumblr, responses in your email telling you people were following you, so that was always exciting. And then moving over to Tumblr, you can see the metrics here that were also very positive, and I know Patrick can talk a little bit more about that.
Sure, and just a reminder, prior to this campaign, Fordham University did not have a Tumblr account or an official Tumblr account on behalf of the university. So everything here is a result specifically of actions taken in this campaign. And that includes more than 3,200 and counting page views, 900 plus and counting visitors to the Tumblr blog. And I believe Mallory tweeted out a link to that. It's fordhamuniversity.tumblr.com. And that includes 63 new followers, so people who have signed up and said, not just am I going to come and visit and look at the pictures that we're sharing, but I want to follow anything that Fordham University is doing in this particular space. And these were all people that not that the people didn't exist, but the followers didn't exist because the platform on Fordham's behalf didn't exist. The bigger audience, however, and really the crux of this campaign was on Instagram, where it's a little bit challenging to measure Instagram, in part because some posts are private and some are public, and how do you determine all those? And so really these first numbers are public likes. We've got 6,200 people who have liked a photograph tagged with the Fordham for Me hashtag, 511 comments. The bulk of those comments are along the lines of congratulations, X person, or awesome news, or this is so great, or yay, in part because they are sharing this very joyous and exciting time in their life about making this decision to attend Fordham. There were 282 public posts, 180 public participants, and 99 unique participants. And so that goal of hitting 100, I fully anticipate, if we're not there already, that Fordham will be there shortly. And beyond just some of the straight statistics and the numbers showing what impact this campaign had, we have images like this. This is one of the images that Donna helped set up with getting the mascot there, but that this particular student posted on her own. And so Donna, I'll let you talk a little bit about kind of these next examples and what we see here and what they're sharing.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what you want to see, of course, is that, this lovely young lady posts this picture, but you see she has 97 likes on this, and that, and several comments. And really, when we think about the organic reach of this campaign, we're looking at her reach, her own audience, right? And so we've reached 97 7 other people. And I think Patrick said this at the beginning, that we can assume that a lot of the 97 are people that are her age, her demographic, maybe even they've applied to Fordham and are admitted students to Fordham. But in any case, it's doing nothing but making Fordham University look good because of this interaction. So yeah, here's another one. What's nice about, we did have a lot of people do this too, which is post more than one, do this neat little collage thing that they do. And also show the campus, which also is a win-win for Fordham, to show the campus, to show the student. The objective, what we said in the email, was post a selfie. But not everybody posted selfies. Often they posted pictures of what they wanted to show, which was the campus that they were going to be attending.
All right. And there's a great comment that came across on Twitter. What is a public participant and a unique participant? I think that's part of our just internal lingo. The beauty of Instagram, and we used Statagram to get some of these measurements, but that we can tell who has used a hashtag and posted a photograph using that hashtag. But if that particular Instagram account is private, we can't see the photograph, and so we don't. So we know that the hashtag was used, but we don't know who used it or exactly what was in that image or what people were commenting or how many people liked that particular image. And so that was part of the challenge, is that we did have nearly 100 people that were using the hashtag, but because their accounts were private, shared it among their friends, but not necessarily in a public space with us. And so we bring it back to the goals, our measurable objectives. Did we reach 90% of admitted students? Not yet. At this point, we're about at 60%, reaching that incoming class via email. We have generated 99 unique posters among these admitted students. When we look at the public and private posts together, we can roughly estimate if the percentage of unique participants would stay the same within the private realm of posts. That number would probably jump to around 150 already. And did we attract 150 new followers on Tumblr and Instagram? Yes, the Instagram account has grown by 150 followers since the inception of this campaign. Add to that the 63 new followers of the Tumblr blog. That's at 213 new followers. And so the question is, what did we learn from this campaign? What can we take away, and what lessons did we learn through engaging in this effort and reaching out to this audience? And so, Donna, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I touched on this, which is, we had originally hoped that we would see lots of student faces, because that, of course, from our point of view, would make a great Tumblr blog. And we thought also, that it would be kind of an old school Facebook of like, meet the incoming class of 2018. In the end, though, students are going to post what they want their audience to see, and we ended up with lots of pictures of the same building because it's, of course, the iconic building on campus. And it is beautiful, and it's very Harry Potter-ish like, and so there's some redundancy on the Tumblr blog if you look at it, because it's like, oh, look, there it is again. But of course, that's what they wanted their audience to see, and so it's nothing you can control. Two, I think, as far as, and yeah, you can see some other, and then the Lincoln Center campus, a lot of New York City content too, because people were going to, very excited about moving to New York City.
Another lesson I believe learned here is that social content never stays in the same silo. So while we were focused specifically on 2 platforms and measuring the impact of those 2 particular platforms, content was everywhere. And just because we weren't promoting those platforms as part of this campaign to this audience didn't mean they weren't taking that content and sharing it with their networks elsewhere. And so what you see here is just a simple sample of tweets. A lot of them are tied to Instagram accounts. Some of them are not. Some of them were straight pictures they were loading into Twitter that they were sharing with their friends. So they had taken this hashtag and wanted to participate. Were excited about sharing with it, and went to the networks that they wanted to share that with. And so it didn't live solely on Instagram or solely on Tumblr, but spread well beyond those walls. And Donna,
and I would add too that we saw a lot of activity on the hashtag around commencement, and these weren't prospective students. They were our graduating students that kind of got a hold of it and liked it, and as they were posting pictures of their graduation, they were using it as well. So again, you can't even control the audience.
Certainly. Well, tell us a little bit about expectations, Donna. I know we learned some aspects around there.
Yeah, I think when approaching social media campaigns and we're trying to kind of sell these ideas to our administrators, their understanding or their exposure to social media campaigns have been what they've read about in the papers. It's like the Oreo, Super Bowl campaign or something that's so huge that it actually makes the papers. And so their expectations, I think, you have to be managed. That, for instance, in this particular campaign, we're not talking about thousands of posts. And when we look perhaps at organic reach through likes and the friends and all of that, maybe we got 1,000 people. But really, we had a very specific purpose. We had a very specific audience, and managing that expectation of how many posts there might be, or that it's not just about the posts, it's about who engages with the posts. We had to manage that expectation, and we also had to manage, how in the end, when we started to measure, of course, I'm sure this question will be asked, is how will we know that this actually influenced yield? We can't know that. We can't. I wish there was a way. It was something we discussed early on with the group, the bigger group, and short of actually trying to attach someone's Instagram username, try to find their actual name, and then see if that person actually enrolled at Fordham University is pretty much undoable. And so we really can't, as far as a direct correlation, we will never be able to at this point determine that kind of ROI.
Right. And it's hard to come back and ask that question of, did you commit to Fordham because of a tweet that you saw or a post on Instagram? Maybe not, but I think it's, in this particular case, about building that relationship and building that connection. And so looking forward, the last lesson that we'll share is just that the future needs to be a part of your plan. And so now, I know Donna and her team are in discussions of, we have created this campaign and we have seen success with it. Well, what happens with it now? The hashtag doesn't necessarily die or end, and we're going to want to influence yields again in the future. And so what happens with this particular hashtag? And I think, analyzing this campaign and the success that Fordham has seen with it, those decisions are, still to be made and finalized and adjusted and tweaked. As Donna mentioned, current students are sharing this hashtag, and what do we want this to become, and how do we want to share this moving forward? Is that correct, Donna?
Well, yeah, and now we have a Tumblr, so
right.
We got to do something with the Tumblr,
right.
Because again, this, we can certainly pick this back up again next year, which I hope we do. But in the meantime, what are we going to post on Tumblr? And now there's some planning that has to go behind it, because it's sitting there and we don't want it to languish.
Right. Well, great. Well, then this brings us to the end of our presentation, of a formal presentation. And so first off, I will say thank you. Specifically, thank you to Donna. She is fantastic to work with and is active in social media. And so I've placed her contact information here. Donna JL on Twitter. You can follow her along. But I believe we have time for a minute or two for some questions. And Mallory, are you there? Hopefully you've been collecting them.
I have been. We've gotten such great questions, actually, and the back channel has been blowing up. So the two of you are going to definitely need to check that out afterwards. We've had some really great conversations back there. But let me share with you a couple of my favorite tweets, actually. Jess Moore said, acceptance email screenshots are the new black. So much opportunity to leverage excitement and connect with new audiences. I loved that, the new black. And Stephanie said, measurable objectives, the key to social campaigns and evaluating success. I loved that. Such a good point. And Sarah said, social media is a marathon, not a sprint. Expecting overnight results are unrealistic. It takes specific goals and time. I thought that that was a really smart tweet as well. So those were some of my favorites. There are plenty more, but some of my favorites. So a couple quick questions for you, Donna, that are a little more logistic, and I'm not sure, a couple of us might have missed it if you ever said it. So first of all, how large is Fordham's incoming class? And second, when did this Fordham for Me campaign officially kick off? Like, what was the date?
Yeah, now I wish I had the actual statistics. If I said there were 8,000 admitted, because I think, we bring in a class of a little over 3,000. So, I mean, it's a large group of people. And so when we emailed them, this was something that took some time because it's a lot of emails to go out at once. We started mid-March, and actually it was something that was very interesting, I think, for Patrick and I to see this. Because, the idea of the whole campaign was to share the news of choosing Fordham. Well, May 1st was the deposit date, right? The big decision day. And we didn't see as much activity as we had hoped from March to April. And it's because, we found that people play it a little close to the chest, that they're not letting people know who they've gone with or who they've decided to go with. Until then, May 1, there was a flurry of activity. So that was really interesting.
Right.
Oh, I was on mute doing the dance. All right. That is really interesting, Donna. Okay, lots of questions. So I'm just going to start at the top here. Melissa's asking, she noted that you had well over 6,000 public likes. Are those likes on your account photos or just any photo that used the hashtag?
Photos that use the hashtag.
I think those are on the account. Those are just on the hashtags? Mm-hmm.
Correct. So let's say, Mallory, that you are not posting on behalf of Fordham, and you are excited about your admission to Fordham, and you share it with your vast audience, and you collect likes. And so if it was a public account, we went to that photograph and said, Mallory had 100 likes on her particular photo. And I think Donna touched on this. What was key there is that, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds are sharing this with their peer group, which is a group that we're trying to influence. And so we counted those likes. Those images that were shared with the hashtag with us were then in turn shared with the Fordham Tumblr blog. And so they would also pick up additional likes maybe there on Fordham's Tumblr place.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. Another question that I think, Donna, maybe it's best if you answer this. Was there a specific decision to just focus on visual content instead of text or video content on Tumblr?
It really was about the amount of work involved in any given thing. That we were looking for, the greatest impact with the least amount of work, and that's why photography really kind of rose to the top, because we were asking, it was user generated. We were asking people to post their own photos. So from the back office point of view, we weren't having to write tweets and create video, etc.
Gotcha. All right, so for some of our attendees who might not be as familiar with the Tumblr platform, could you give us just a little bit of 101 information? The specific question was, did the students' post show up on your Tumblr page automatically, or did you have to curate that? Or were you sharing a link that was a search for the Fordham for Me? How does that back end stuff work?
Sure, I can tackle this one. Tumblr is really just a blogging platform, and so essentially all we were doing was we'd connected the Fordham Tumblr blog with Statagram. And Statagram allows you to search by hashtag and search by search terms. And so with a simple search for the hashtag Fordham for me, you can then share those images that pop up within that search field. And it shares a link to the Instagram essentially, and it pulls that image onto there. And so
easy, love it.
Yeah. Yep.
How did you set your number for the increased Instagram followers? What was some of the decision-making process around that?
Sure. I know looking at Donna had mentioned that Fordham had recently joined Instagram and had a pretty healthy growth following, but that had kind of grown and then slowed and kind of depended on when they were posting images to that account. And so really we took that and tried to think about what was realistic and what would demonstrate some success on this particular campaign, and looked at a growth rate that would exceed, the existing path that they were on, and kind of draw that out, and what could we do to accelerate that growth to reach a broader audience. So looking at all those numbers, it was really a matter of, how far can we push this and say, yes, what we did was worth the effort.
Yeah, I would add to that I don't think there's anything wrong with having modest goals when it comes to social media. I mean, again, I don't think we didn't need to end up in the papers, like I said before. We had a goal, and anything we could do to affect that would be great. But in the end, we did want to. The balancing act was how much effort, was put into this for how much impact. But again, there's nothing wrong with having some modest goals to start out with, especially when this was the first time we were doing anything like this. I think if we did this, when we do this again next year, our goals might be a little loftier because we've had some experience.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So the folks over at Binghamton asked, they mentioned that they tend to struggle with creating new hashtags. So how did you come up with Fordham for me? And I will admit, I already replied to them saying that besides Patrick Power's genius, that there must have been a process there. So.
No, and I think I know Donna and I have had this conversation, like bouncing around hashtags, and I think it comes down to talking about you want it to be branded, but you want it to be short enough where you're not taking up all the room in someone's post. You want it to be memorable, and you also don't want it to be used in a negative way. It's so easy to turn around some of the hashtags, and you've seen, McDonald's and other big industries that have used hashtags that have gone south. And so, how do you kind of protect against that? And really, it's just going through permutations of Fordham, admit, new to Fordham. The Ram is the Fordham mascot, and how we incorporate that. And so really, it's just back and forth about what words might work best.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. A few people are asking, both on Twitter and through GoToWebinar, how did you measure and know when or if you reached the 90% of all admitted students? And that's going back to one of those key measurable goals from the beginning of the presentation.
Right. I think that's the hardest one to reach so far. So as part of this campaign, I know email was considered a part of that. And did we reach out to them? And so really that's the driving force behind that number, was how many people opened up and read that email or clicked through that email. Going back and listing someone's Instagram or Tumblr account side by side with the roster of those admitted is probably unrealistic at this point, as Donna had mentioned. And so that's what that number was based upon. It was primarily email.
Mm-hmm. Donna, can you tell us a little bit about what specifically those emails were promoting? What was the content of those emails?
Yeah, they were nice and short, and they were very much to the point. And it was share your excitement, take a selfie. Here's the hashtag, and I mean there really wasn't a lot to them. They were really they were exactly what they needed to be, and we didn't weigh them down with any kind of other information that of course those admitted students need. But it wasn't about this. It was a focused email on this one thing, and it was rather short.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Let's see, we have a couple more questions. So Susan's wondering, beyond the campaign, will admissions have access to the Tumblr and Instagram accounts to continue with engagement? And I'm going to add on to that, if it's not admissions, is it a central marketing office, or, who's going to be maintaining those accounts?
Yeah, the Instagram was owned by the admissions account office, and so we actually had to, that was part of the setting up of everything, is we had to ask for access to it, and they were more than willing, but it's been nice because we're looking forward to doing more kind of partnering around social media. So it's not, the admissions office has the admissions page over here, and news and media have their page over here. The Tumblr account, absolutely, we would welcome their participation. But again, there's a bigger conversation that kind of has to happen in my office around what the future of the Tumblr is going to be and how it's going to be used. Because I think, Patrick said this at the beginning, you can talk to all of the internet, and at universities we have many, many audiences. It's not just prospective students. So, does that become something bigger, or do we save it? We gave it a name, which is fordhamuniversity.tumblr.com. So it sounds rather broad. So those are some of the decisions we have to make.
And I did just want to jump in, as an outsider and working with Donna. I think one of the keys to the success for her and the campaign was the ability for Donna in marketing and communications to work with admissions. So often colleges and universities, there will be siloed efforts in social media, and there's an admissions Twitter account, and there's a university Facebook account, and how do they all work and play together? And I thought Donna did a fantastic job in kind of building that bridge and saying, here's the expertise we can bring to the table, and let's do something to actually impact something here at the university that matters to us.
All right, and I think this might be our last set of questions. A few people have asked over Twitter and GoToWebinar essentially the same thing. Did your yield percentage increase this year as opposed to last year? Or did the rate of admitted students who chose Fordham increase with this campaign? Do you have any of those numbers from the admissions office, or is that something that they're going to be measuring, once students actually arrive on campus?
It's funny because I have seen like the director of admissions recently, and I'm asking those questions too. They're still counting, and so I think we all understand that May 1st is really kind of a artificial number, and that the class is still taking shape. But what I do know is we've got good news. I know that things are going very well, and they're smiling when I see them, right? So I know that things are going well, but I'll get the actual numbers because I am very curious too to see if there is a bump in yield. And then what can we do? Some of the talk around this campaign has been, what can we do this summer to reduce melt? Those people who commit, who deposit but then don't enroll. So we're looking at maybe doing something with the hashtag this summer.
Nice. That's awesome. I think that's a really great idea. Summer melt can, be a huge pain in the butt. So anything you can do to decrease that, that's awesome. Well, Patrick, Donna, thank you so much for your time today. I think this was just really excellent, and you shared so much wonderful information. Thank you very much. And folks, those of you who are still with us, thank you for attending. We appreciate the hour out of your day. And don't forget to fill out our short exit survey. It's going to magically appear when you exit the webinar, and we would really appreciate your thoughts on how our presenters did today and if the topic was relevant to you. And I hope I see you later this month for our branding webinar. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Mallory. Thank you, Donna.
Bye.